The following is intended for informational purposes only. It is intended to supplement classroom training and documentation. It should not be relied on as a replacement or substitute for classroom training with a live expert instructor. This workshop uses ProcessFlow to create a custom registration form. This example registration form is for training purposes only. In no way does it replace the existing base registration form. Welcome to this 13th lesson in Config Tools, where we will be discussing menus and navigation generally within the application and how BPA scripts are used on the front end to direct the menu flow and the navigation flow within the application. We'll be looking at portals and zones. And we will be specifically turning our attention to our registration form type, which until now has lived within the process flow type menus. And here now we will create our own unique menus for the registration form type. And again, this will be used as an example to demonstrate how navigation and menus work. So if I go to process flow type, you will see that we have a list of process flow types, including our business registration forms. But included in that list is a different type of process flow type, which is not the registration form type. We would like to create a type of menu and list that only shows registration form type and isn't within the context of the process flow. How will we be able to do that? So the way which we will do that is by creating new menus, new scripts, new navigation options in order to support that. Let me show you what the final product will look like. If I go to admin, I've already created a menu called registration form type, and here if I click on this registration form type, I have a title registration form type, and here I only have in my list the two items, the two registration form types, and I don't have any other type of process flows. If I click on the broadcast, I see a registration form type. Again, I see no mention here of process flow type. I don't have a zone with action zone. Everything here is customized so that you would not think that it is using the process flow type MO. This is what it looks like from for the display for querying and showing registration form types. If I want to create a new one, if I go to registration form type here, the interesting thing here is that it goes directly to this maintenance map without needing to fill in and choose a process flow type BO, which you had to previously. Let me just compare that to what happens if I actually use my process flow type. In this case, you will see that it brings up another map and tells you and asks you to select your BO. And I don't have that in my case because I've customized the scripts which support these menus that bypass this stage, that in fact automatically it will choose the registration form type BO because that's the only BO that we have. Okay, so there's quite a bit of customization that was done in order that we get to this stage. Now I'm going to go through a little bit in detail about what was needed and how we did that. Again, just to summarize, what did we see that we have done? We have put our registration form type under its own menu. All wording, any references do not show anything related to process flow type anymore. Everything says registration form type. You can pick registration form in the list of registration form types. You do not see any process flow types which do not relates to the registration form type. There's no action zone. And you also do not need to choose a process flow type BO. And in order to understand how we did this, we need to understand the flow and navigation which is involved from the point of adding a menu all the way to showing a maintenance map to update a BO or to see a display map. And we haven't actually seen this. We've mainly concentrated on the business object, but not on all the navigation. So this is an important thing that we need to look at now. So here is an overview of the registration form type navigation. On the left hand side we see in yellow showing the different menus that you have, and the menu admin is a standard base menu within the system, and we have added in, and what you've seen is a final product where I've added in a sub menu called config tools, and we'll show that in a moment. And within that we've created our own new menu item lines. Menu items we have a line with menu items. One of them is the registration form type plus, and one which is for adding a registration form, and one is for searching. So going back to the application, when I go to registration form type over here, I have two options. This one is adding a new registration form type, this is searching. And what I'm saying over here is that behind the scenes I've had to add in a menu item for each one of those, and each one of those items points to what is called a navigation option. A navigation option ultimately directs the application to a specific, either a portal, which is the case of searching when we do a search, and in our case it goes to what we call an all-in-one portal, and that's the navigation option when I click on here. When I click on registration form type here and I click here, this one is bringing up a portal, what I call an all-in-one portal, because it is showing a list together with the actual display of the actual specific registration form type, all within one portal. Okay, so that's a navigation option type pointing to this all-in-one portal, and underneath that portal there are what is known as two zones. One zone represents the top layer here, which is the Info Explorer zone, showing the list. And the second one is the one that we have dealt with much more throughout the whole course, which is the one which is backed by the business object itself. It is a type of zone which is called a object map, and that's one which we should be more familiar with. The first one here, the one on top, actually we directly can put in a SQL query which can define what we show in this list. And in fact over here, the fact that we only see registration form types and we don't see any process flow types other than the registration form type is because I've manipulated the query, and we can see that later. On the top hand, when I'm adding a new registration form type, the mechanism to do so does not work via creating a portal. It is known as, it's a script, and it's a third type of script that we haven't really spoken about. We've spoken about plugin scripts, we've spoken about service scripts, and here we're talking about a BPA, a business process assistant script, which allows you to actually not only do processing on the back end, but actually you has a user interface that we can see and we can interact with. And that actually is the mechanism used within the base product to actually make any changes and maintenance to business objects. And we have worked with maintenance BO user interfaces before, but the starting point of the actual bringing up any of the UI maps or anything that is generated through UI hints starts with a BPA script, and we will be looking at that script, because the script that we actually the script that we actually have changed, we've modified and taken our process flow type main BPA script and we've modified it, and in our case I've already mentioned that we've customized it so that we do not show anymore the registration form type BO when we choose to actually create a new registration form. We already know what the BO is behind it, so therefore we can skip that stage, and that's within a subscript called BO processing, and I'll show you where I did that change. Again, so the basic point is that most of the changes that I've done is using the model and a starting point of the process flow and its menus and the scripts and navigation options, and sometimes I'm just copying them and making changes. So I'm mentioning here that the registration form type starts main BPA script is very similar to the process flow type one with a couple of changes. Now the other thing to also mention is that to understand the navigation, as we mentioned, starts with the search capability, which brings up the zone. The zones, which is an all-in-one portal with 2 zones, and we can also within the zone come back and bring up the BPA script. How does that happen? Well, let's say if I'm on this particular zone here, I click edit. I am now bringing up the BPA script, and the edit brings up the script, and the way it does so, an important thing to know is that it brings up the script by using the maintenance BPA script, which is defined on the MO. And in this case, it was the process flow type MO, which defines the maintenance BPA script. And that's what's brought up when I click on edit. So that's important to realize that within the zones of the display, you can move back into the maintenance by clicking on the actions on the right hand side over here, record actions. Also, we know that if I actually create a new registration form type, the final part of creating a registration form type is to go from the script to the actual registration form type itself, and the way it works is because at the end of the script there's a navigation step that finds the navigation option, which is portal nav option, which is defined on the BO, and that leads you to the registration form type. So the point here I'm trying to bring out is that if I go to registration form type over here, I'm clicking on here, we've customized, as I just mentioned, the script so that it bypasses the BO, choosing the type of BO. But here I just put in something I want. Anything doesn't matter. Just don't get any errors. Not sure if we define these as needed, but if I hit save, right now I think this needs to be capitalized. What happens at the final save over here is that I moved now right there to the registration form type itself. So that is the point I'm trying to make, that there needs a navigation step at the end of this BPA script which moves you to the registration form type and back into the all-in-one portal. Okay, so that is a very quick overview of how the navigation works. Now let me just show you quickly the steps needed in order to make these customizations. The first thing that I did was to create a new registration form type portal, and once you do that, the system asks you, warns you that you need to make sure that the application service for the portal needs access, and you have to define the access so that your user group can access that portal. If it's not given that access, it will not be seen on menus, it can't be used by this particular user. And then I have just taken the 2 zones and replicated them based upon the process flow type and made some basic changes so that the descriptions say registration form type instead of process flow type. The labels say the words registration form and not and not anything else. And then I have made, as I mentioned before in the list, I've changed the SQL so that I only show registration form types. So let me just show you that for a moment. Here I'm actually running this under debug so I can see my zones directly over here. And if I go to the zone that I created, you will see if I go down and I go, here's my actual SQL statement, I added in this where clause. And this where clause is what allows me to only see registration form types in my list and not any other process flows. Because again, the selecting is still on the process flow type because the actual data is still in the same table. I haven't created new registration form type tables, so I'm still borrowing the same data and tables to actually house my information. I'm only just simply changing the menu structure and the navigation a little bit. So that is the first change that I wanted, the major change I wanted to show you with changing the query. Now, once I've done that, going back to the navigation, what I've now performed is I created my all-in-one portal, and I've created the zones underneath it. Now, and by creating my all-in-one portal, I have automatically created a nav option, because navigation option is automatically created when you create a portal. So that's already been done for me. And now I'm going to go back and fill in some of the work needed on the top side here with the scripts that are necessary. So the next step that I needed to do is to, first of all, add in a context field to the registration form type portal nav option. It's very important that, again, let's say if we have a look at the portal that was created, that I created, and again, I generated this, and once I generated it, this application service was created automatically. I had to give it access. This nav option was created also, and it's important to add in this context field process flow type. If we don't add that in, then the navigation won't work. You need to know the primary key in order to, so that the navigation flows from the menus and it goes and shows the right process flow type. So as well as that, you need to actually go into the business object . If I go to my registration form type, the portal nav option now has to be pointing to the newly created navigation option, which we just saw a second ago. If we don't do that, then what will happen is that after creating a new registration form type, it will not find the right portal to go to, and it'll go back to the process flow type portal, which we don't want to happen. So that's very important to happen. In other words, going back for a second to this screen, the point is that I want my script that can go directly from my registration form type script directly to my registration form type portal, and not to the process flow portal. And in order to do that, you need to update your portal nav option on the BO, because that's what's being used. Okay, so that is the change that needs to be made on the BO. Now, the other thing that we need to do is make a change to the main BPA script. Again, using as our prototype the process flow type maintain script, we have to make some changes. So I want to show you that script. Let me go and let me go to the script which is used, and again, it's this BPA script. This one over here. Again, the script type is BPA, and it uses the multiple steps, and we don't have to make changes. I didn't have to make changes too much to the base process flow type maintain script. Again, this is just a copy, but the point is that there is a section over here where I need to create a what I need to actually call the registration type BO script, and I had to make a change over here, and it's over here. If I actually open this up, that in the case when there is an add, as opposed to, and you can see I've commented it out, as opposed to looking and finding and bringing up a UI map to say which BO to choose, I've hard-coded the UI map, not the UI map, but the BO that I want to use. Because again, for registration form type, there was only one BO. We only created one BO, so therefore I've hard-coded it in there. And as a result of that, it bypasses the whole stage of choosing the BO necessary and goes automatically to the next step. So this is the basic change I had to make to the script, and scripts sometimes can be, BPA scripts, quite complicated, and you have to follow through everything that was needed to be done in order to see the changes that you need to make, because sometimes scripts call other scripts, and we saw this as an example that we had a parent script which called this particular script, and the changes are not always in the parent. Sometimes they're tucked much further deeper down into the scripts, into the hierarchy, and you have to see where exactly the changes need to be made. As well as that, I needed to actually create a new script for the registration form type add, and I had to set my navigation option, which I just created, accordingly. So what I have over here now is the steps that I've already done. I've done the portal and the zones, and now what I've shown you is that we've added in this navigation option for adding, which points to the script, and I made some changes to the subscript so that it bypasses this step of choosing the BO. And finally, now we need to actually create these menus. So what you need to do, and let me show you the menu structure. I can go to menu, and under the admin menu, what I did, I created a sub-menu called config tools. Now you can't see the config tools sub-menu because I've actually showing the admin not by sub-menus but by alphabetical, so everything is shown differently. I could change this to show actually everything within the sub-menu category, and then you will see that we actually have a config tools sub-menu which I have added. And if I go to this sub-menu here, you'll see that I've added in a line called registration form type, and it's this over here that you see, registration form type over here, that it corresponds to this. And underneath that, you see I have two items. Click on here, and the items, one of them points now to my search registration form type. This is the portal one, which was created automatically when we created the portal, and the second, and the second one is the add, and here we have an image GIF showing the add icon, and here we this one we created ourselves, and it points to the script, the new script that we created. So in other words, if I click on the navigation option over here, I now point to my newly created script, and again, remember that script itself was basically the process flow type script with a couple of changes, mainly the fact that it bypasses the BO step. You don't have to choose a BO. So that basically concludes the navigation and the changes that I made in order that the admin menus work now in a much better way without showing the process flow type. One last thing I want to mention is that I mentioned that the edit, when you edit and change a particular BO from the display page, that goes and brings up the script itself, and that script has to be defined on the MO. So even though it's tucked away, show you that the fact there's what's important here is the. So I wanted to show you that the maintenance BPA script, which is defined on the maintenance object, is shown over here. And this is the script that is brought up when you click on the edit buttons from the actual display page on the process flow type display page. If you try to edit, delete, you bring up the BPA script, and the BPA script which you bring up is defined on the MO. Happens to be that this is the MO data is base, and I can't make any changes. It just happens to be that here I don't have to change the BPA script to my own customized registration form type maintenance BPA script, which is lucky because I cannot really do so. I can actually add one in, but it would affect all process flow type MOs. And because of but the fact is, over here, the changes that I made to my registration form type maintenance BPA script were only when I needed to add a new registration form type. And since we're adding, deleting, which we do directly from the display map, isn't related to add, I can use the base one. So the point is that in order to go from the display map to the script, we go via the maintenance BPA script on the MO. So what have we learned in this lesson? We've shown how you can create new menus and navigation, and we have seen that this process is not actually that trivial. It's necessary to have a good development environment in order that you can practice and make sure that you know exactly what you're going to do and the impact that you have on all the different scripts and menus, portals, and zones that you are using. Keep a detailed list of all the changes so that anything you do, you can roll back and you can understand exactly what needs to be changed. And only after working properly in a development environment and you understand that exactly what you need to do, would you then replicate the process in a pre-production and then finally a production system.